How do you know when to shift something from a hobby into an actual business? We all have things that we love doing that are fun to us and that we would just spend all day doing, even though we're not getting paid. It could be playing golf, running, playing tennis, public speaking. There are a lot of things, anything you enjoy doing. But how do you decide when you're going to turn that into, oh, this is an actual business that I want to run? And then what are some of the pros and cons of that? That's what we're going to explore today. Welcome to King Moves. In chess, the king moves one step at a time, but that single move can change everything. Each week, we explore mindset shifts and simple actions that could lead to the next breakthrough in your business and life. I'm your co-host, Ethan King, from Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money.
And I'm your co-host, Justin King, no relation to Ethan, from Cape Town, South Africa, entrepreneur, speaker, and business growth strategist. Our journey crosses continents and cultures as we think out loud, challenge assumptions, and uncover the small moves that create big momentum. Welcome to King Moves. Let's start the conversation. General ambition creates anxiety, but specific ambition creates direction. I've been living in the space of general ambition. I like to think I'm an ambitious kind of guy, but general ambition is it's faux comfort. It's this idea that, yeah, I could be that if I wanted to. I could do that. I could create a successful speaking brand, a successful speaking business if I really tried. But because it's general, you don't put a stake in the ground and you don't declare what it is that you're wanting to do. So that itself, it lets you off the hook. But also just creates this simmering anxiety because you never ever get to that place either. So I've taken a step into the specific ambition, particularly around my speaking and wanting to build a speaking business and wanting to build a successful speaking career and speaker brand. But it's been interesting, Ethan, because that's actually flipped the lid on a different kind of anxiety for me now, which is you put it out there, you're doing it, you're working towards it. But now it means that the opportunity for success is there for sure, but it also means I'm going to be able to measure myself against what I'm capable of as a speaker and how do I potentially have to stare failure directly in the eyes at some stage as well. So as I say, pertinent topic right now because that's what I'm going through.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes to that, if you think back on your life, are there times when you have turned a passion into a business? Because I can think this isn't the first time and I'll talk about mine because I've kind of entered that same phase again in my life with the public speaking. But this isn't the first time because I was always passionate about art and I've turned that into a graphic design business. I'm sure I've told you this before, but growing up, I wanted to be an artist as a career. Like drawing and painting was my thing. And then my parents were like, well, artists don't make money until after they're dead, right? So that's when I said, well, how can I take my passion for art? Because, I was very serious about it. I took AP art classes. I scored a perfect 5 in both of them. I had my art was in exhibitions and things like that. Like I really wanted to go all in on being an artist. And it's funny. I laugh about it now because now that I'm a parent, I realize how crazy I must have sounded to my parents who only want a good, stable financial future for their children. So, yeah, the art world is crazy and tough to make a living in. But I turned that passion into a graphic design business, which was my first business, and it did very well at it. It's a freelance designer. But then here come the negative parts of it. Once you're intentional about it and you love it at first, like there's this honeymoon period where it's great. I love what I'm doing. I get to spend my day doing my passion. And then you start to get the little annoyances, like when clients get on your nerves or things don't go right, or you need to hire your first employee or a contractor and they don't deliver like you would deliver. And you have to learn how to train them. And then you have to do payroll and taxes. And it's like all this other stuff comes with being pro, with turning pro from amateur. And what I found is that you really have to make sure that passion is strong enough for you to push through all of the other bullshit that comes with it. Because no matter what happens, when you decide to go pro and really make this your business and grow it, it comes with extra bullshit. And you have to figure out how to handle that. And I think if your passion is strong enough for that main thing, then that'll push you through.
Do you think you have to make peace when you make that decision? Do you feel you have to make peace with the fact that you're going to be changing your relationship with that thing? And I'll give you an example. So I love sport, always have. particularly ball sports. That has been my thing growing up. Played a lot of ball sports. Third job, I was made MD of the national golf handicapping system here in South Africa or in Southern Africa. So we serviced 600 golf courses, golf clubs, and it had a database of 160,000 golfers. And I mean, that was amazing. Like I'm in the sports industry. It's a global sport. How flippin' amazing is that? But that thought didn't
Mm,
last too long because the reality of running that business day to day and dealing with grumpy golfers who think that our national handicapping system is super shit and we can't calculate a handicap at all. And our terminals that we are, so our hardware that we ship to all the clubs, they don't work and blah, blah, blah. And once you get into that, it very quickly stole the excitement out of being involved in sport, being involved in the golf industry. I didn't want to go to play golf on a weekend because invariably you would be swamped or you'd find a manager moaning about something about the handicapping system. So maybe an extreme example, but, and I wouldn't say that my absolute sporting passion was golf, but it changed my relationship with it
mm,
dramatically. And that was the case for 6 years in that position. But do you think that means that to take your, let's call it your passion, your hobby, which has maybe become a side hustle first. So you're
mm,
passionate about it. It then become a side hustle. So it
mm.
you've proven that you can earn some form of revenue from it. Now to take that next step, and in your case, going for as a designer, did you have to make peace with the fact that my relationship with my passion is possibly going to change?
Yeah, possibly. But I think most of us don't even realize that when we first get into it. And I was young. I was early 20s and I didn't have enough life experience. And my mindset was I'm going to make this my career and it's going to be all good from here on out because that's how we think as young people. But I think if you are, let's say you're in your third, fourth, fifth career, because I believe one of my mentors, Kevin Cole, who's ironically, he was my art teacher in college. He said he believes that you should reinvent yourself every 10 years or so. And so that way, in the span of a working career, you can live like seven different lives or whatever it is. And I admired that philosophy of his. Now, he's always been an artist, but he kind of changes things up every 10 years or so. Like, he might change his look or what his focus is. And I realized that I've kind of done that a little bit myself in that started out with the graphic design and that's, the Greek stuff. And then kind of went into when we opened the retail with Zeus's Closet, then that was a shift too, because now it's like retail apparel and running a store in e-commerce websites. That's a different shift from just being a freelance graphic designer. It's a service-based business. And then now I've shifted from doing the store into public speaking as a career. But you're right in that transition because it starts as a passion and then the side hustle and then the main hustle. And I think you need to go through each of those gradual steps and not make a jump. When people make a sudden jump into something, like they have a wild idea and then decide I'm going to make a business out of this without going through that side hustle period where you get to try it out for a little bit on the side and make sure that you like it, then I think that's when people get into trouble. Reminds me of this client I had a real quick story. When I was a freelance designer, this lady who hired me to design postcards for her grand opening of her beauty salon. And she had the address on there and everything. And we designed these postcards, got them printed, and then delivered them to the lady. And she had paid me up front. But then I found out that she did not even have a lease. She didn't have the lease for that property that she printed the address on the cards. It was all just a dream of hers. She was like, I declared it. I claimed it with God that this is where my business will be. Didn't go get paperwork or anything. Went and got postcards printed up and she could not get that building. So she wanted me to change the address. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to pay again. And that was a headache. But I always thought that was a funny story because she put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, the cart before the horse. Well, what I was thinking about as you were speaking is it's aligning expectations. It's having realistic expectations about what you're going into, and maybe that's a good way to look at it. And I like what you say. It's taking the passion into a side hustle, into a real hustle. But that step from side hustle to real hustle, that's where the exploration has to be done around what can I realistically expect when this becomes the real deal. Because
Right.
if I step into it with my eyes wide open, knowing what it's going to be, then you're probably going to make a relatively smooth transition. But if
Uh-huh.
you step into it expecting it just to have that same feeling, the most amazing thing, it's just doing my passion every single day, never gonna work. I've got the air quotes out, everybody. Never gonna work a day in my life again.
Right.
But if that's what your expectation is and it's something different, I think that's when you start setting yourself up for almost like frustration and animosity towards yourself. For, oh man, why have I done this? Why have I ruined my passion by stepping into it professionally? But there probably are ways to prevent that as you go.
And some people, I actually recommend maybe don't go into the main hustle phase. Stay in the side hustle phase. For some people, because there's security in that zone where, let's say you have a full-time job, you're 9 to 5, or I remember in mine, I had a full-time job, but I only worked 3 days a week because I was working at a newspaper. So Monday through Wednesday was the schedule because we had to have the paper done. And we just worked long hours Monday through Wednesday. Then I had the rest of the week off. And I used that time for my side hustle work to focus on that. So that was kind of a sweet spot. I could have stayed there. And when I look back on it, I made a lot of money then because I was getting a full paycheck from a job and I was getting paid for my side hustle. So that was actually a nice little sweet spot. Now, I decided to go all in on my stuff as a full-time entrepreneur, and this was over 20 years ago. But for some people, I recommend just stay there. That way you get to enjoy it on the side and you have the security blanket of your job. So you have to decide what's right for you.
Ethan, once you turned it into a business, did you still dabble in your artistic pursuits on the side? And that might sound silly, but obviously you've gone into the graphic design element of it. So that is now a business. Did you, on weekends, if you had downtime, did you still decide to lean into art? Or were you getting all of that exposure in the workplace?
I did for a little while. And I have some pieces around my house, like some paintings that are hanging on my wall that I did. But then that fizzled out after a while. And I always had this dream in the back of my mind that when I'm done with my career, I'm going to come back to art and be an artist. It's also easier to be a successful artist if you have a little bit of fame and recognition behind your name. For example, I don't know if you know this, but one of our former presidents, George W. Bush, he's a really good painter. And yeah, no one knew that until after he was out of office. In fact, I think studies show that he's one of the most liked past presidents of the U.S. Like, people like him way more now than they did when he was in office. He's just a likable guy on both sides after the fact. But he's a really, really good painter. Like, if you look up George Bush paintings, you'll see. But it's also a lot easier for him I guess he sells his work, but it'd be a lot easier if you're someone like a past president. So I said, well, maybe I'll get famous just so it's easier for me to sell paintings once I retire in my next life.
Maybe. So here's the dilemma I'm thinking some people have. It's because you are passionate about this thing, and you, like you said, sometimes you've got to keep it as a side hustle, but because you are passionate about the thing doesn't even mean that it should be a side hustle or should become a main hustle. That's what I think people need to balance and understand is, I'm passionate about it, yes, but is that skewing my judgment and my ability to make a sound decision because I love this thing so much? And if I love it this much, surely if I take it to the world or I offer it as a service, people are just going to love it as well. How can people check themselves with that?
Well, I think you have to decide, and it depends on each thing. For example, let's say you just enjoy playing golf as a hobby. Well, I don't know if you should turn that into a profession. How do you measure it first to decide whether to do that? Whereas with art, when people pay money for something, it assigns a value to it. That shows you that it's actually worth something to the outside world. So if that's important to you to get that validation, then selling it, even I remember I sold a few pieces of my artwork, and that was very rewarding because now I know, like, hey, this isn't just important to me, but also the outside world cherishes this. And then when we went into the stuff for Greeks and making the jackets, it's like, oh man, people pay us for this all the time. I'm delivering real value. So there's something about that exchange that really just kind of boosts your self-esteem, or at least for me it did, that validation. And the same for public speaking. It's like, yeah, you can go speak, but how do you know if you're shit as a public speaker versus, if you keep getting invited back and getting paid a higher fee and keep going up on your fee? That's proof that, okay, I'm doing something right here. I'm delivering value to the world. I'm making a positive impact in people's lives because things keep going up. So I think that that's a way to measure. Otherwise, if you're just doing it for fun and you just want to embrace the fact, hey, I'm just doing this for fun, I don't really care how it comes off to the other party, then keep doing it as a hobby. But I think that would be my answer to your question.
Yeah, I think, that resonates. And I think you've nailed it. For me, it's just all about, it's this exploration-exploitation dilemma, or the exploration-exploitation, the explore-exploit trade-off. It's, you've got to have done enough exploration around the thing to be able to know, okay, it is time to flick the switch and we can now exploit. But if you haven't spent the time doing the exploration, and that could be exploration around how good are you actually at the, to your point, like I know the golf is an extreme, but you got to spend a lot of time exploring golf to see whether you're actually good enough to make a profession of it, or whether it's the artistic pursuits, or it's setting up a digital marketing agency, or whatever these things are. You've got to explore the pursuit. Am I good enough? Can I sell it? Can I sell the service? Can I sell the product? And at the point that you've got enough evidence that this can become a thing, at that stage you can flick the switch and you can choose, right, it's now time to exploit. And then you lean into it and you do the thing. That's kind of where I'm going with it.
Yeah. And I'll challenge that just a little bit with the timing. If you want to know that you're exploiting the right thing, because if you're exploring and you just keep exploring without feedback, how do you know that you're exploring or practicing the right thing? You know, like my golf swing, I did actually, we keep going back to golf, and I actually did golf for a little really tiny moment in my life. I took golf lessons and I played, and I noticed that golf gets more fun the better you get at the game. I just don't have enough time to play it. I get why people retire and play golf all the time, because it's a really, really fun game, but it's a time consuming game. But the golf swing is obviously very important. And I took lessons, and I realized I had to practice my swing. But if I didn't have the lessons and the coach correcting me, then I would have kept practicing the wrong swing, and I would have built up muscle memory on the bad swing. So you have to get feedback some way, whether it's from a coach or from an audience or from customers buying your work, if you want to get better at the thing. So the way to test that in the marketplace is to offer your product for sale as early as possible. Because if somebody actually pulls out their money and swipes their card and buys your product, then that's how you know it has value. Not people saying, oh yeah, I would buy that. No, actually pull out your wallet, and not your mom or your friends or your family, but an actual complete stranger. That's how I measure it. When a complete stranger starts buying whatever it is I'm selling, that's how I know there's some real value in the marketplace. And the more strangers that buy it, the better. And then I can continue to improve upon it. Now, if I didn't care about improving upon it, whatever that hobby was, and I just wanted to do it for fun, then I wouldn't go that route earlier. But I would encourage people to go into take the explore phase and exploit as quickly as possible just to get the feedback.
I think we're speaking about nuances now, because I 100% agree with you. The way I look at exploration, it's the ability to minimize uncertainty. And in order to minimize uncertainty, you've got to get the feedback that you're speaking about. 1,000%. I think about one of the early businesses that I started, and I thought I was going to be a billionaire off the back of this, because everybody I spoke to loved the idea. Oh man, Justin, that is gold. Yeah, absolutely. We would love to do that in our business. Oh yeah, Justin, that's amazing. I would love to do that. But to your point, none of them were willing to take their credit card out and swipe for it. Loved the idea, told me how much they loved the idea, told us how much they loved the idea, but didn't swipe the credit card. So that actually never minimized the uncertainty that I had around, well, is this an actual fit? Can this become a real business? So that was the exploration, but I was never able to flick that switch to full-time exploit, because there was just way too much uncertainty through that exploration phase.
That reminds me, and I'll leave people with this king move. From my point of view, get to the exploitation phase as fast as possible. If you have a hobby that you're thinking about turning into a business, or if you just have a business idea, launch in 24 hours. Because a lot of times we hesitate because of how long it will take to do all the steps. Oh, I need to launch a website, and oh, I need to run ads, and I need to have the perfect product or the perfect offer. And when we think about all these things, then we just put it off and we never get to it, and we procrastinate. So, and I learned this a long time ago. It's like, how can I launch in 24 hours? And that might be 3 days, 8 hours a day. But once you have this idea, it's like, okay, boom, I'm going to launch the website this day. I'm going to do the ads this next day. I'm in the landing page this next day. Whatever it is that takes you to get to that minimum viable launch and put it out there to the world. Like, just swallow the pill, take a weekend and do it, and then see what happens in the marketplace, and then improve upon that.
I think let's end there. That's a great king move. Just do the thing, get the feedback, get the info, and then make an informed decision.
That's a wrap for today's episode of King Moves. Remember, in chess, like in business, one right move can change everything. Take today's action step, make your move, and build momentum.
If you found value in today's episode, share it with someone who's ready for their next breakthrough, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our weekly conversations. Until next time.